Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Hilltop Pillbox here in Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada. And I'd just like to start out by saying sorry. It's been a while. I guess I'm Canadian, so I should say sorry. It's been a while that since I've had a video up. I think about 2.5, 3 weeks now. Crazy busy ending off the school year. Some good news though is I got myself a job for next year, so we're pretty feeling pretty blessed about that. Going to be doing some leadership courses, mentorship courses, social studies, and broadcasting. So I get to play with cameras that are a lot better than this one. But hey, this one still gets the job done. It's a handy dandy little camera. And yeah, so here we are. We're back, and I'm going to be crazy busy going forward, but I'm going to try to get another video up next week. Hopefully we'll have the time for that. But today, as you can see, we're going to, again, move away from your typical games, and we had a couple of people request this one, so I'm going to give it a whirl. Well, not a whirl, I'm going to show you how to play it, because I've played this many times, and I'll tell you about the base rules, and then I'll tell you about some of the house rules that we have. But the Modern Naval Battles, it's a game by the 3W game company, and this is a very hard to find game. And if you do this tiny little box that only has cards in it, it's going to run you about $100 or so. I think I paid 80 for mine about 15 years ago or so. But this came out in 1990, and it was a very small. Or no, this was in the 80s. I think the sequel came out in 1990. But Dan Verson is the guy who did it. So hope you can find it if you like this little play display, which I'm going to show you. Alright, so we'll start first of all with the turn order cards. Typically you just pass these out face down, or put them down face down in the middle of the table, and everybody grabs them, and every single round you grab a new one, so you have no idea what you're going to get. So you could be the first player one round, the last player the next, which means that everybody will attack you twice by the time it's your turn. Or you could be fortunate enough to be the last player in round one and then be the first player in round two, so you can finish off some ships that you may have dented. We'll talk about that later. These stay secret though. As you take these, don't tell anybody what you are. Of course, player one has to flip the card over right off the bat, but after that, everybody else, it's a bit of a mystery. In our experience, this game plays best with 4 or 5 players. 6 gets a little bogged down, just because there's a lot of decisions to be made, and there's a lot of humming and hawing and whatnot. So our best games are 4 or 5 players. 2 players, kind of boring, you're just slugging it out against each other. And then 3 players, if one person gets attacked by the 2 people, it turns into a 2-player game pretty quickly. So let's just keep that in mind. But this is a great game. The die here, when you roll the die, it tells you how many attacks you'll have that turn. Okay? Now, your attacks are based on your cards. And your red cards are the attack cards. These are cards that you're going to use to try to inflict damage on opposing ships, which we will talk about in just a minute. So you can see we have an A, B, and C missile attack, and you can see that the damage goes up as you go. Now, I just picked some quickly out of the box. You can have B missiles that'll do more damage, and C missiles that'll do considerably more damage, like 4 or 5, which can outright sink a number of ships. Then you also have the gun attacks. You got the little 3-inch pom-pom, and then you got the 5-inch gun, and then of course the big old 16-inch gun attack. That does a lot of damage. And then submarines, of course, can use torpedoes. And then the last 2 are the Airstrike type cards. The Bomber Strike is the kind of the granddaddy of the game. And essentially, when you play the card, you roll the die, and that's how when you roll for your attacks. Ooh, if you roll that, don't play your bomber card. But if you roll like a 5 or a 6, then you just play your bomber card out of your hand. That means you can use the bomber card 6 times that turn, and just go to town. some people look at the silhouettes on the side here and just they say, oh, it's only 4 silhouettes, you can only do 4. But we say, hey, you got a 6, knock yourself out. And then you got land-based airstrikes, which aren't quite as nasty. You can see with the bomber card, you're going to sink an enemy ship for every 1, 2, 3, or 4 you roll on a D6. With the land-based airstrikes, that's only good on the first row, and then the second row and third row it gets less and less, of course. As you know, with modern navies, you put your tempting targets in the middle, and everybody has to run through a picket to get to them. So the ships on the outside are more expendable, therefore it's easier for them to hit. Okay. Well, that's all great, but how can somebody stop you from doing these horrible things? Well, for our missile attacks, it's electronic warfare, right? So you're going to have your electronic countermeasures. Okay, ECM is going to jam it. And so if somebody plays a missile card on you, you play that out of your hand, and it simply nullifies the attack. Okay? And if somebody plays a gun attack or a torpedo attack, you just play evasive maneuvers. Okay, that prevents gun and torpedo. It just eliminates one attack, okay, per card. So if you have 2 torpedoes coming in, you need 2 of these to get out of the way. On this side here, though, you see a card that's both red and black. That means red is for the attack, black is for defense. So on your turn, if it's your turn to attack, you would play the card using the red thing, so you're going to be going after stuff. If you play the black, it means somebody has activated a submarine and fired a torpedo at you. Then you can launch your ASW and go after them and roll the die. And the sub is always active when it's shooting at you. And it's typically passive when it isn't. That's up to the owner. We'll talk about the ships in a little bit. And we remember the airstrikes coming in. And we have air cover. Okay. So if somebody says, I'm going to use the bomber strike and I am going to use all 6 attacks against you, you could play 1 air cover card, and as you see here it says less 2 attacks per successful air cover. And we'll talk about the air defense in a little bit. Okay, so if you play this air cover card, you'll actually knock that down to a 4. Okay, so he'll only have 4. Even if you roll a 6 on the die, he'll only have 4 attacks with the bomber, thanks to your air cover card. So these are handy to hang on to. There are 2, I think there's 2 bomber strike cards out there. And so you'll want to hang on to that until they're played. Yeah. Now, let's say some of these attacks get through, you're not able to jam things, you're not able to dodge the guns or the torpedoes, and maybe some air attack slips through and damages one of your capital ships. Well, what can you do? Well, on your turn, you can play a blue card where it negates the effect of one attack. Okay, so what's going to happen is these damage cards, we'll show you this in a minute, would slip underneath a ship card. You'd only see that much of it, and then you just take the damage card and you remove this and you say, oh, that never happened. Okay, now that's on your turn. The blue cards you play on your turn. Now, some people play that you could play these immediately. It depends on who we're playing with. If we're playing with hardcore gamers, we stick to the rule book. If we're playing with people that, hey, just want to try a new game, we say, sure, go ahead, use your damage card. But you can't replace cards that you play out of turn. So they'd play this and it's gone, and then if you hit them again, they obviously can't use it. And they could use another one, though. I'm going to go to that one in just a second. This is the favorite. I think there's 6 of these. Not all the ships are dealt out at the beginning of the game. There'll be a stack of ships available for use, and when you play this, you add it to your fleet. You add the ship to your fleet instantly. And there's 2 ways to do that. Well, there's probably more than 2, but there's 2 that we use. This is carrier crew efficiency. Adds 1 to the airstrike rating of 1 aircraft carrier. When we show you the ship cards, there's aircraft carriers that'll have either 1 or 2 air attacks automatically every turn. So even if you don't have red cards, you know, if you roll a 2, you can use 2 of your attacks off your aircraft carrier if they exist, and you don't even have to spend a card. Okay? And then this card here, instead of, you typically have to roll a 1 or a 2 to get a hit with those planes. If you play this on that same turn, you now hit on a 1, 2, or a 3. So you got a 50% chance of doing some damage and probably outright sinking a boat. Okay. The retreat card. This you play at the beginning of your turn before you roll the die. Okay, so if you're saying, oh, I'm going to roll and I got a 2 and all I have is a bomber card and I don't want to waste it, I'll play a retreat. No, you're committed. This here says you're coming in to fight, so then you couldn't play this. But if you do play this, you essentially your fleet disappears from the theater of action, and you can take away, as it says, up to 3 damage cards. Okay, so when you have those cards, and you'll see what it looks like in a bit. But when you play a retreat card, it can actually save some pretty impressive ships for you. So retreat card, hang on to that. You may need it. Now in this game, you cannot steal people's cards. Nobody can come take yours. And if you have cards that you can't use, well, that's okay. You just ditch them at the end of your turn and replenish from your hand. Or replenish to your hand, and you typically hold 7 cards in your hand on your turn. Okay? Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up about 3 fleets here, and we're going to take a look, and maybe I'll set up 4, and we'll show you how the game is played. Just a moment. Alright, so this demo game is set up now, and we're just going to pan around and show you the fleets a little bit as to what each player would have. You can see off to the side here is a blue card. That is a submarine, and until the submarine shoots, it's considered passive, and it's very difficult to hit. And over here we have the 2 carrier fleet, but it's not as strong as it sounds. And then over here we have all the extra ships laid out, ready to come into the game should the need arise. Now, the reason there are 3 rows is because that's essentially how the game is designed. It's designed to be 3 rows, and then the submarines operate outside of those rows, as do some of the aircraft cards. But for the most part, it's very simple. The guns, so if we have a gun card, here we'll take this one. Here's a Big Daddy gun card for this player here. And this is player 1, so player 1 would flip over the card and just leave it there. So this is a 16-inch gun attack. It's going to do 6 damage. Guns can typically shoot, or can always shoot, in this version, from the front row of your Navy to the front row of somebody else's Navy. But I couldn't use my guns off, say, the New Jersey, or my 16-inch guns, to go pound on the Mississippi over here. Okay? Can't reach the second row. So front row to front row for gun attacks. Missile attacks, on the other hand, can go from the front 2 rows of your Navy to the front 2 rows of anybody else's Navy. Alright? So we could in fact hit the Baku if we wanted to. And we'll talk about why the Baku is in the second row there in just a second. Okay? So that is guns and missiles. And then of course and if you have a torpedo card, it can attack anywhere. Okay? These guys won't have a torpedo card, which is good because they don't have a submarine. Alright, so right off the bat here, we know that player 1 could do some decent damage. So he's not gonna pass up a chance to shoot at some other people's stuff. Oh, look at that. Oh, if only we had a bomber card, but we don't. So there's a missile, and then another missile, and another missile, and 16-inch guns, and we just got to make sure that we can launch all this stuff. So we know that the New Jersey can launch the 16-inch guns because it says gun 16 inches. Okay, so we'll put that there. And then we have an A missile attack. Now each platform can only shoot 1. So if we fire from the Hailer, okay, it's an A missile platform for our A missile card. The Hailer is firing that, so it couldn't fire another A missile. Okay, but fortunately we've got the broadsword that has an A platform if we needed it. Alright, we don't though, but we do need a B platform. You see the B triangle up there? And so we find a B triangle, and the Colbert is not doing anything these days. That's not a shot at Steven, by the way. And so we know that we can shoot that. So we'll put that in our list. Okay. And then we have a C missile, big -5. Okay. And we have a lot of C missile platforms. We have one on the New Jersey. We have one on the Vincennes. So we're good to go there. I shouldn't have said a lot. But anyway, 2's plenty for one missile. But we rolled a 6. And as we look, we only have these 4 attacks. Because the rest of our cards are things that we don't really need right now. You know, we could play the additional ship card, but we're going to save that for another moment in the tutorial. Alright, so we've got these 4 attacks, but I'm entitled to 6, so where can I get the other 2? Well, let's look at the constellation. And remember, attacks are all red. Okay, so the red cards, you see the red cards here? And all the symbols here that are red all have to do with attack, attack, attack. So when we look at the airstrikes, well, those are mighty red, and it says we have 1, 2 airstrikes. So we're going to use those. So the first thing you do is you declare everything you're going to do. And so in this game, there's a couple of schools of thought. Either spread out the love and kind of wear down everybody so nobody's stronger than you. Or, you know, kick the weak guy. Alright? I'm a big fan of kicking the weak guy because if you can run him out of defense cards, then you can have some fun. Now the problem with being player 1 is that many times you fire and the defender uses his defense cards and then the other guy gets to shoot at him before he can replenish his hand and he gets to take the ships, because when you destroy a ship you take the card. And New Jersey can take 10 points of damage and it's going to cough up 14 victory points at the end of the game. So you got to kind of, you know, overload the system just to ensure that you're going to kill something. So we're just going to shoot over here at this player. We don't know if it's player 2 or player 3. If it's player 3, that'll give player 2 here, who by elimination would be player 2, a chance to finish off anything I don't sink. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus fire and hopefully be able to take things out. Now when you shoot, you want to shoot at the things that are going to give you the most points if you have a choice. Okay? So as we look at the front here, we see the Spruance, the Slavny, and the Canine. Okay? And the point values, the black circle, 4, 6, and 4. So at first blush, we'd really like to go after the Slavny. But when we look at the second row, we see there's the Mississippi worth 9. Alright? Now the Admiral Golovko is only a 4. He's in the second row though because he's got a C missile platform, and those are worth their weight in gold when you start getting C missile cards because they're pretty hefty. As we can see now, because we're going to use these, and we are going to try to take out the Slavny. Okay, so that's a C missile going in there. So if this guy doesn't have a card that says electronic countermeasures, that single card could kill the Slavny. Okay? But we want to make sure we kill the Slavny. Okay? And so we're going to fire the big 16-inch guns in there as well. Front row to front row, no problem. And those 2 cards there are enough to sink the Slavny. Then we also could say, you know what? We want to soften up maybe something else here. So we're going to soften up the Mississippi. So we're going to fire 2 missiles into the Mississippi. Now they're just little guys. It's only going to be -2 and -1. So it's only going to be 3 points, which is half the health of the Mississippi. And so the neat thing here is that the person who's defending could say, well, that's only 3 points, I can handle that, so I'm not going to play my jamming card on those, because next round, if I can't repair it or if I can't retreat, then buddy over here might fire more missiles that have more of a punch. So this won't sink my ships, but it'll damage them, but I can put up with damage. But see, the problem is that now we still have these 2 airstrikes left over. And just because we want to go for the gold today, we're going to send both airstrikes after the Kennedy. Now the thing about these ships is that capital ships like carriers and battleships are a little tougher. Okay, So you can see here that the Kennedy can be crippled. So typically when you do enough damage on these things to sink them, so this takes 12 damage, when you have hit it with 11 damage, or you've hit it with one airstrike, you flip it over. Okay, so when an airstrike hits a card, flip it over. If it looks like this, you just sank it, it's gone. But if it looks like this, you got to hit it again, at least one more, as it says here. Hits to sink rating 1. And look at that, 22 points, all nice and juicy there. So, what's going to happen here is we're going to try to sink the Kennedy with those 2 airstrikes from the Constellation. Okay? Civil War. Alright. So, the first thing you do is you resolve all of the attacks. Now, there are different ideas as to how to resolve these. You can do it technically correctly as the rulebook states. You can do it for drama. It's totally up to you. Oh, one moment. Alright, so we're back. Now when you go to resolve these attacks, essentially the attacker will say, alright, these are my 6 attacks. So I'm putting 2 into the Slavny, 2 into the Mississippi, and 2 into the Kennedy, 2 air attacks. Well then the defender is going to look at his hand. And he's going to see, what do I have? And you're looking for black cards. What do I have? And this is a very attack-heavy hand. Okay? He does have an anti-submarine warfare, but there's no attacks coming from a submarine. So he's just going to have to eat all of these. He doesn't have any jamming cards. He doesn't have any cards that are going to help him defend. But because he has a really good poker face, he's going to sit there and think about it for a minute. I don't know, maybe if I'm going to waste it on this one, because to get into this guy's head that maybe you do have defense cards and don't really want to spend them right now. I'm going to save them for you. So, you resolve them, gun, missile, torpedo, and ASW attacks in any order you choose. All right, you don't have, there's no set order that you have to do them in these order. But the key is that the air attacks all get resolved last. It's the last thing that goes through. So, as we know, this gentleman is saying, or lady, I don't know who's playing, but he's got a really deep voice. He's saying, I am going to allow all these to hit. So if he's going to allow all these to hit, we know right off the bat here that these 2, that's 11 points of damage. That Slavny, where 6 points, is definitely sunk. So then you just take this and you put it over here face down so he knows it's not part of his. And then these cards get placed back in the box. They do not enter the game again. And then all of a sudden we're down to 2 ships in the front row. Meanwhile, these 2 missile attacks come in and there's 3 hits coming in, and you just sit them in there like that, and at a quick glance you can see there's 3 damage on a 6-hit ship. Okay, so that should be pretty straightforward. But now we're going to do the air attacks. So there are 2 air attacks coming in from the Constellation, and they're both coming at the Kennedy. Now what you're looking for then are air defense rolls. So as we can see, the Kennedy has an air defense of 4. Okay? But the Mississippi also has an air defense of 1. Now the Mississippi's damaged, but it's not damaged down to 5 points. If it was down to, or it's not damaged 5 points. If it was down to 1 point of health, air defense is no longer good. And an optional rule is, for every point of health that you're down, you lose one of your platforms. I don't like that one because then people just spray 1 missile attacks everywhere and start knocking out, you know, like 2 hits on the Spruance and it's a useless ship and Canine and all that. And there's not that many repair cards. So we just like saying once you get down to having not much health left. So we still got 3 health on this, and he's got 3 platforms, so he can keep that. But when you get down to 1, we say your air defense is no longer good. Okay, we're going to assume there's just so many electrical problems and probably tons of smoke obscuring your view. Can't see a thing. So your air defense is null and void. But what you're going to do is you're going to try to defend the Kennedy. Well, we'll see what happens here. So the first one you roll is 1. Now you need a 1 or less, which obviously on a D6 is a 1. So here we go. got a 4. So we know that one of the attacks is coming through. Okay? But can the Kennedy stop the second air attack, or one of the 2 air attacks? Needs a 4 or less. Oh, not a good day for this fleet. Okay, so we've had the air defense. Well, now here come the 2 air attacks from the Constellation onto the Kennedy. He needs a 1 or a 2 in order to hit the Kennedy. Here's the first one. It's a 5, so it's a miss. And the second one is a 4, it's a miss. So there you go. Those 2 air attacks failed. And that is that for player 1's turn. So player 1, at the end of all things here, has gotten 3 damage on the Mississippi and has procured a 6-point Slavny Soviet destroyer. Okay? That goes there, and that's going to add, those points are going to add to whatever he has left at the end of the game, if he has anything left at the end of the game. So that's player 1. Now player 1 takes a look at player 1's hand and says, now I have 3 cards left. Additional ship, he could play right now if he wanted to, but he's going to hang on to that because, maybe something will happen where he needs to get one. And then we have 2 defense cards. Now, as I stated before, is when somebody plays a gun or torpedo on you, you can play this and prevent it. Another thing you can do is called point defense. And this is an optional rule, but we use it all the time because we think it's very, very cool. Your point defense card essentially just goes out in front of your fleet like this. And that means that you have 100% immunity to gun and torpedo attacks until it's your turn again. So if you're the first player, that's pretty cool because you know that, hey, nobody can attack me with guns and torpedoes this round. All right, with a couple of submarines out there, that could be handy. And yeah, you might be sitting pretty. You can also play another black card. So you could play that. That means that there are no air attacks that can come in on this fleet. Now, he could play that one as a point defense, but the neat thing about this being in your hand is if somebody has a bomber card, this negates 2 out of your hand, plus he's got the Vincennes that has 2 rolls at 3 or less, plus got the Constellation at a roll of 4 or less. So he might think about this air cover and say, you know, I think I'm going to hang on to this because the Vincennes is probably going to get sunk. It gets targeted by missiles usually. It's probably going to get sunk, and I might need this air attack card. So I'm going to hang on to that. But we're going to say he actually is going to play his additional ship card. Now there are 2 different ways to play the additional ship card. As long as it's on your turn and you haven't replenished your hand, you can play this. The very simple way of doing it is taking all the boats that are left over, shuffling them all together, putting them in a stack, and just taking the top card. Okay, you can do that. Or you could do this neat little method that I devised. That's where I take all of my 3 and 4 point ships and take all of my 6 and 7, or sorry, those are my submarines here, the Charlie class submarines. So all the submarines are there. And then all of my higher point smaller ships, and then your missile cruisers, and then any battleships that are left, and then the get that out of the way. Sorry, folks. Sorry about that. And then any carriers that are left goes at the end. And then you just roll a die, and you get the top one of the stack. So you rolled a 2. So I just picked up a Charlie class submarine. Okay. And when you get a new ship, you just, if it's a submarine, you flip it over passive, of course, because it's not being used. Let's say, though, that he rolled a 4. So we go down the row, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we get to the Tejas, Texas. Okay. Now, it has to go into an existing row, and you can't, invent a 4th row. It's got to be 3 rows. Right? So with air defense and an A&C missile platform, this would definitely go into the 3rd row. All right. Now, what if, for instance, things had gone really, really badly for this player, and it was like this at the start of his turn. Maybe he lost a bunch of ships. Well, when you grab a new ship, you can you put it into an existing row, and at the start of your next turn, you can adjust your ships to make a third row. Now remember, the third row is nice because guns and missiles can't hit it. Torpedoes and airstrikes can, but at least most of the attack cards can hit. Alright, so it's typically a good idea to keep your ships in 3 rows, most of them in the front, and you know, you got the ones in the back, of course, the ones in the middle, of course, not a lot you can do there, but then keep your carriers in the back so they can only get hit by certain things. Alright, but we know that we rolled for a submarine, so he's going to get the Charlie class submarine, and it's a pretty basic, pretty vanilla submarine. So now Buddy here is down to just 1 card, which means he's going to take 6 cards to replenish his hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? And as we look at what he picked up, he has got a ton of attack cards, all missiles. Who shuffled this mess? And then, of course, a missile defense card. So, if he has that, nobody can attack him with missiles on that. Well, they can attack him. But now he can't take this and put it out as point defense now, because when you replenish your hand, you are you're signaling that you're done. Okay, so that's his turn. Additional ship card goes away. The attack cards that he used before, they go away, and you just essentially just chuck them in the box. Okay. Well, then we find out who's player 2. And gee, how did I know that? So here's player 2. And now we come over to player 2's hand, and we've already seen a lot of red cards. So we are going to take a look at what kind of a roll he's going to get. Oh wow, a lot of carnage today. One little note I'm going to mention here, because I think he's got a... Did I see a sea missile attack? I did. Sea missile attacks, an optional rule you have is that your air defense can try to shoot down a sea missile, because many of them are so devastating. This is the weakest one at 3, but I think there's, yeah, we had 6 missile. I know there's a 5 last round. I think there's a sea missile with 6 damage, so pretty devastating things. But we look at this, we see 6 attacks, but he also has an additional ship card. Okay, now this guy is probably going to need an additional ship here, because I think the Mississippi might be in trouble. So we're just going to roll. And he rolled a 3. So not a great roll, but hey, it's a free ship. The Obratsovi. If somebody from Russia or speaks Russian can say that better than me, good on you. Alright, so now we have choice what to do with it. Now he's got a 3-inch gun, which usually isn't very much a big deal. And he does have a 3-inch gun card, but he also has the canine out front that has 3-inch gun. So a little bit of a decision, an A and B platform and a 6-point ship. Yeah, you could make arguments for everything, but I think what we're going to do is just put it there. And the reason that it's going there is to, if somebody's going to fire missiles, now they've got 3 things to shoot at. Okay? But he's got 6 attacks. Now, first thing is, he's got a torpedo attack at a -4. And he's really ticked at Buddy over here, and he'd love to shoot it. Unfortunately, no. Point defense is going to stop that. So if he's going to use his torpedo attack, which I'm sure he will, he is going to have to come over here and use it against something over here. So he has to then make his submarine go active. So his Alpha class is going to fire a torpedo. And we're going to fire it into the Invincible. Because why not? And then he's got 5 more attacks. We've got a C, and there's a C platform right there. And we're going to fire that Actually, you know what? We're going to change it from the invincible because that's all we're going to be able to do to it unless we get a couple airstrikes through. But if we get a couple airstrikes through, then we don't need it. So we're going to actually fire the torpedo at the Slava, and then we're going to add the sea missile attack to the Slava. So that's 7 damage, as you can see. And the Slava, it's upside down, but you can see the 6 with the line. Okay? So that would sink the Slava, but he's not happy with that. He's going to fire one more A missile, and we have lots of A missile platforms in this fleet. He's going to fire an A missile platform, A missile, pardon me, into the Slava. Okay? Technically not a great move, but it's fun. So now we have a 5-inch gun and a 3-inch gun, but we also have our 2 airstrikes. So he is going to fire his 5-inch gun and 3-inch gun both into the Kincaid. Okay, because the Kincaid can handle 4 damage, and that's 4 damage. Okay, and then he declares that he's going to do an airstrike, and his airstrike is going to go over here against the Vincennes because he wants to get rid of that Aegis anti-air air defense. So first thing you do are all these other attacks. And let's take a look at what he's got in his hand here. Oh, look out, that could be problematic. We have an air cover, we have a retreat, we have a missile. Ooh, this is a great hand actually to start with. Okay. So Buddy here's got some choices to make. Can't use the retreat card because it's not his turn. The air cover he could choose if there were air attacks coming in, but they're not, so we don't need to use that. And then all these red cards here are no good because that's for attacking. But he does have an evasive maneuver which prevents gun and torpedo attacks, and he's got a big old torp coming in here. So he's going to play this evasive maneuver card on the torpedo, and it just eliminates it, and out it goes. Unfortunately, he's got to eat these ones. Okay? So these 2 are coming in like this, and they're going to be damaging his Slava. And the Kincaid has nothing for it. So the Kincaid just got sunk. It's just a little ship. And there goes that. And now he's only got 1 in his front row. But now we have to take care of the airstrike. Remember, airstrikes are the last things we do. And so now we say, well, does this guy have any air defense card he wants to use against this airstrike? Well, he does, but it's only 1 airstrike. And he's got lots of air defense here. So he figures, you know, I'm not going to waste my card on that. We're just going to roll it up. So the Vincennes gets 2 dice at 3 or less. Oh, right there. So that 1 attack right there gets shut off. It's done. Okay, so that's the end of the turn for player 2. So player 2's hand right now consists of an anti-submarine warfare card, which, as we can see, there's a blue passive sub and another blue passive sub. That could be handy. So he's going to hang on to that, which means he gets 6 new cards for his hand. And so we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 7, and there we go. And now, of course, no mystery whatsoever, player 3. Well, player 3 is going to roll, and we saw all the attack cards player 3 had, but player 3 rolls a deuce. And player 3, just to show you guys something different here, says, you know what? Well, he can't do his retreat card, but he is going to play two land-based airstrikes, okay? Because he's ticked at Buddy here for sinking, or almost sinking his Slava and sinking his, what did he sink? The Kincaid? What did he sink? Yeah, sank the Kincaid. So he's a little ticked. So he's going to send both of these airstrikes after his front row, okay? Now remember, submarines aren't part of the rows, even though this is active. So he's going to fire one at this and one at this, okay? So now, because we look at his hand and we say, does he have any air defense? Doesn't look like there's any air defense. No, no air defense at all. He now has to decide who's going to defend what. So the Canine is taking one hit, the Spruance is taking one hit. Now they're both the same amount of points, they both have 8 missiles. Spruance has a 5-inch gun, Cannon has a 3-inch gun. So just taking a quick look at his hand, we'll just see if that... So there's a 5-inch gun attack, and that's it. So he's probably going to want to protect the Spruance more than the Canine. Alright, and so because he's declared here and here is the attacks, attack 1, attack 2, he's going to defend the Canine with a 1, and the Kennedy is going to defend the Spruance with a 4. So this is the Canine being defended, and it's a 2. So no, the Canine attack will go through, and the other one is a 4 or less, and that one is stopped. So the Spruance is saved, but the Canine now has to possibly endure a hit here. So we'll see if it can survive. So a 1 to 4 will sink the Canine. Oh, look at that. So a small measure of revenge for all the damage that this player endured. So we'll put that over there. And that is now his points for the game. And that goes away. And then he says, well, what have I got here? Well, we got a bomber card. We're not getting rid of that. Got a B missile worth 4. Not getting rid of that. Or are we? Now, why would he maybe get rid of a B missile? Well, let's look. No B missile platform there. No B missile platform there. No B missile platform there. And no B missile platform there. So he can't even fire his B missile. So he looks at that and he's sad because, well, I don't even have an additional ship card. So he's going to throw that away. Just chuck it into the box. It's gone. Okay. But he's got lots of C missiles. And he's really tired at these airstrikes. So he is going to... There's a lot of airstrikes going on. Not against him per se. He's going to place that out there as a point defense card. Okay. Now, he also has a retreat card, but you obviously can't play. So he's got 3 cards, which means he can take 4. Okay. Okay. So he takes his 4 cards, and it looks like he's got a useless card there in the 16-inch gun. And then he's also got another retreat card. Oof. So he might just choose to retreat, and just stay out of there and let everybody else kill each other, and then come back. Alright, so that is the end of round 1. So you take the cards, and you shuffle them up and jumble them up, and then you deal them back out. And we'll go 1. Alright, I think... No, I thought I knew who was... Oh boy, Ofer. Alright, so back to number 1. So now because this player is number 1, he's going to play first. This point defense card is no longer useful. So into the box with you. Alright. Now he looks at his cards. If he has a retreat card, he could retreat, but he has no damage on him and he doesn't have a retreat card anyway. No blue there. So he's going to roll a die. Oh, 2. So not as crazy. Now he says, hey, I've got 2 attacks here. I can save my attack cards and I can... Oh! Can't do that because that's point defense. It automatically stops it. But he looks at the Mississippi and says, ooh, what if I could sink that? So we're going to take a look here and see if we've got some missiles that might finish the Mississippi off. Okay. So we've got A missiles and we've got B missiles, and combined they could kill the Mississippi. These ones here are all too light, so he's a pretty lightweight shooter, but he's going to send both of these into the Mississippi. Alright, so that's 4 more points. That will sink the Mississippi unless this player is able to do some ECM jamming. Let's take a look. Nothing there. Oh, can't retreat. Can't do that. Can't do that. And damage control you only play on your turn. And he got that at the end of last turn, so he couldn't play it. So it looks like these are going to go through. There's nothing he can do. So there goes a 9-point ship Alright, just from a couple of missile cards, so that goes over here. Nothing on the back, it's not a double-sided boat. And then all these attack cards that used to be into the Mississippi are now all chucked into the box. So player 1 has done his attacks. Now he can move one ship, one row, so he might say, you know what, I don't think I'm going to get another 16-inch gun card, so I'm going to do that. There's only a couple in the game. So he's probably thinking, I'm not going to get another one. So he moves the battle wagon to the back, a little tougher to hit. So guns can't hit it. You know, if somebody rolls a 4 or 5 or a 6 and puts them all into the New Jersey, well, the New Jersey can only take 10 hits. And that's worth 14 points. So, but then he looks at his hand and he says, boy, you know what, I'm sitting pretty right now. I think I'm just going to relax, but I don't like these A missiles. These are terrible. 2 1s and a 2. Can't do much damage with that. So then he chooses to chuck them. And he's got 2 cards remaining. So that means he can take 5 cards. 1, 2, a lot of blue there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's his turn. And now we find out who player 2 is. It's Buddy here. And now his air cover is gone because he's the active player. Now he could roll to try to see how many attacks he has, or he could say, you know what, I am out of here. And he just plays a retreat card. So he takes no actions. He can get rid of cards. Alright, so he has another 16-inch gun attack card. So he chucks it. And he's just not here. He's just not even here. So he has some really good cards here. Okay, and this card here is another retreat. So he's got really good cards. So he is just going to replenish his hand. Take a couple of cards to get up to 7. And that is his turn. So now we go on to this player here. Now this player has a decision to make before he rolls a dice, of course. Doesn't really have a, I think he actually has a retreat. He does have a retreat card. So he could take off. Okay, and his Navy's getting beat up pretty badly here. Okay? But the first thing he wants to do is he wants to change that submarine back to passive. Okay, you always want to do that. Alright, and then he looks at his ships and he looks at things that are going on and he says, you know what? I don't like the way this is going. And he retreats. And then he looks at his cards and he says, you know, I think I'm going to get rid of one of these missile cards, these A missile cards. So he's down to 5 cards. So he'll get a couple. Put them in the pile, and there we go. So now all 3 player cards get picked up and shuffled around. So if this person here gets the first player card, he's not going to have anything to do because everybody's going to be gone. So we won't do that. Alright, so here we go. First player. His retreat is now over. He's come back. And now it's time for him to do something else. He's got no damage, doesn't have anything to do. So he's going to roll the dice. He gets 6 attacks. Well, won't this be fun? So we're going to try to take care of that Charlie class submarine. And we're going to fire a B missile into the New Jersey. And we're going to fire an A missile into the New Jersey. And we're going to fire, well, that's 3. And then we'll do a 5-inch gun attack. And we'll do it on the Colbert there. And then 2 air attacks on the Constellation. Well, unfortunately, he wants to protect, so his air cover is going to do that. His electronic countermeasures is going to get rid of this. Okay, so that all goes away. And the air cover is going to help him defend that. So that missile attack plows into the New Jersey for 2, but it still has 8 left, so it's fine. Okay. And this stops on a roll of 1 or 2. It says carrier modified. Whenever it says that, you just add 1. So on a 1, 2, or 3, it's going to stop one of the air attacks. So let's do that first. Oh, you missed. Woo! And then we'll do the air defense of 4. Okay, so that stops 1. And then the Vincennes has 2 at 3. It's a miss. And a 1 is a hit. So no air attacks get through, so we don't even have to resolve them. And then gun goes in. Now the anti-sub warfare is very simple. If it's a passive submarine, you got to get a 1, but it's carrier modified. So you have to have a carrier. And we do. So he's going to take a roll, and he needs to get a 1 or a 2. And he does. And his anti-sub warfare is good. And he takes that Charlie class submarine and he adds it to his stack. It's always a good idea to put the subs on the bottom, or you might think they're yours. Well, that's about everything you need to know about this game, folks. And I hope you enjoyed the modern naval battles. And yeah, if you can find a copy of this, I highly recommend picking it up. It's a very rare find, but it's a real treat of a game. And so many little nuances to it. Lots of neat little house rules, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So thanks for watching from the Hilltop Pillbox. And you know what? Once again, folks, I'll never stop saying it. Hug your loved ones. Let them know they're special. And hey, may those dice be with you. Okay, just as a quick addendum to the video, I forgot to mention how you win the game. Well, there are a couple of ways that can happen. One, you could be the person with the only fleet left, so that would be a definite win. The other way can be everybody else kind of says uncle, just gives up. And the other way is what typically happens is you work through all the cards. Alright, so you have all the cards that you've seen played, the ones in their hands, plus that deck there. So there's 114 action cards total. And once you've worked through all 114, and so let's say on somebody's turn, they replenish their hand of 3 cards, so now the deck is gone. Okay, you would then play the remainder of that round plus 1 more round. All right, so if that was player 1, player 2 and player 3 would go, and then everybody would have 1 more attack. Or if it were player 3, that would be the end of that round, and you would just have 1 more round, and everybody would have an attack. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. So if you are interested in this game, as I said before, I highly recommend picking it up. Lots of fun. It's not hard to learn, and there's just a lot of fun things you can do. Another thing I wanted to point out is that some of the submarines actually have some nifty little things here. So you look at the LA class submarine here. It also has, besides the torpedo, it also has a sea missile platform and anti-sub warfare rolls -1. And when somebody fires a torpedo at it, they get +1 on their. It's a very tough sub to kill, but it's also worth 10 points. But you notice the subs only take 2 hits as well. That's kind of a. I don't even know why it's 2 really, because I don't think there's any 1 torpedoes, and ASW sinks it. So the Charlie class here though has a B missile platform, but then the other, like the Alpha class that we had here. Good thing about the Alpha class is that it's quick. So any sub warfare rolls, they need to do better. Okay. But it doesn't have any missile platform on it. So it's small and quick. And that's about it for the subs, and that's about it for the game. So I do hope that you enjoyed it. Hey, we'll see you next time. And may the dice be with you.